I have 24 webinars this year. We're already running ads for February launch.
Cold audiences or warm audiences?
We're going at both. So we're going cold audiences is going to be 6 p.m.s, and then warm audiences are going to be 11 a.m. just from like the people that we already kind of have.
And you're only doing 2 a month?
We're doing 2 a month right now.
So one's cold and one's warm? Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, you should increase the cold frequency much more. Cold, because it's a broader market of people who don't know you, means you could do it at a higher frequency. You could typically do a weekly cold audience webinar, and you can typically do a once a month warm audience webinar, assuming that your warm audience isn't growing dramatically. There are a handful of examples of people out there that grow their businesses in terms of their overall social presence and awareness very rapidly. When they do a warm audience at a higher frequency than once a month, their extraction rate is still lower than their overall audience replenishing rate is because of how fast their audience grows. When that's the case, you can increase the frequency of warm. When that's not the case, once a month, it's only 12 times a year. We actually did this math earlier today. 12 divided by 365 is 3.2%. So only 3.2% of the year. It's not a lot if you do it once a month. You're promoting a warm audience webinar to your total social presence, your email list, things like that, your warm audience remarketing ads that you choose to do. But cold, true cold, by the way, like you exclude all the warm audiences from the cold so you don't stat pad. We like to have this good quote, a little bit raunchy to be clear, so plug your ears if you don't want to hear it. But when you mix cold and warm together, your stat padding. What you're doing is kind of like measuring your dick length from your ass. It's not the real length. The real length is exclusively determined when you exclude all the warm from the cold. That's when you see your true skill set in the stats. And that's where real improvement is. When you go out there and you run these cold audience webinars and you exclude all cold, you play video games, imagine cranking the difficulty up to like extreme difficulty. That's kind of like what cold audience webinars would be. Then when you go to your warm audience, you're going to crank the difficulty down. If you mix the two together, you're never actually going to see that your cold audience requires a completely different set of messaging or a completely different webinar presentation or even just a completely different set of like pre-webinar emails. The reminder sequences may be different. When you separate them out completely, the stats, the raw stats for it are going to reveal themselves to what you need to do for changes. They're a completely different set of best practices between the two that you'd also want to implement. The only time that you can typically mix the two and get away with it is when you just don't have a lot of cash to risk on just a raw cold audience webinar, and you're also already aware that you're going to kind of suck at cold audience webinars. If that's the case and you need to accumulate a little bit of cash but still kind of expose yourself to cold, you can mix the two together.